Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nayaswami Padma, and I'm here today to bring you the next quatrain, quatrain 24, in the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, as explained by Paramahansa Yogananda. He explained that this incredible poem of its time was in fact a spiritual classic. And he brings forth out of the words which are difficult to understand, at least they are for me, the meaning, the hidden meaning spiritually for all of us, and it's quite universal. So let me begin. I'm going to play this one and not read it first because it has some terminology in it that is difficult for me to pronounce, but Swami Kriyananda, of course, does so beautifully. So listen carefully to this.
Before. Alike for those who for today prepare, and those that after a tomorrow stare. Waging from the tower of darkness cries, fools, your reward is neither here nor there. Paraphrase. All those who dream of finding happiness on earth, whether today or in tomorrow's gains, will find themselves alike disillusioned. Recalling the dark despair born of painful past experiences, the voice of wisdom calls, fools. Never on the vast sweeps of time will you reap the absolute reward your soul is seeking.
Gonna turn this off. I'm learning so much. This, I was just thinking as I was listening to that quatrain that Swami Kriyananda, he must have on some level anticipated the day when different ones of us would study this great poem, this great scripture, and really appreciate his putting to song, putting to music the words of the poem and Yogananda's paraphrase. And then he continues on as well to the expanded meaning. And in the book, he also has definitions of some of the difficult words that, or rather words that we're not familiar with in our language as much, and not in day-to-day conversation anyway. For instance, muezzin is the voice of wisdom. And anyway, it's very helpful in the understanding of this. In normal day-to-day life, we tend to live exactly as this quatrain described. We fret about all the things we see around us. I remember used to watch my parents. This is for many decades after I'd been living at Ananda Village and really into Ananda Seattle later on as well, that they would have a television in every room and they would watch the news in every room, and they would watch it as often as it aired. And in the old days, it used to air once a day, but then it became twice a day, and then it became virtually every hour. And sure enough, when they retired, that's what they did. They watched it constantly. Then what that brings into our lives is a restlessness and in a confusion about what reality is and where it lies, as we've been saying as part of the explanations of these quatrains in the Rubaiyat, that happiness, of course, resides within us and not outside of ourselves, certainly not in the restless chaos of this world. In fact, Yogananda urges us to learn to practice yoga in such a way that we can live amidst crashing worlds. And isn't that what it feels like sometimes? I remember Riemann and I, my husband and I, were young parents at Ananda Village in California. And there were other families, yes, yogi families, even there at the time, who thought we were a little bit odd because we were not planning for the future, not our own future and not our children's future. We were not saving for their college educations. We were not even back then investing in medical insurance and things to safeguard us against the ravages of disease or body or any of these things. And as it relates to our children and their college education funds, as some felt were very important to consider, and in some ways those are very important to consider in normal day-to-day life. But we had dedicated our lives to living for God alone, and so we didn't want to preoccupy our choices, our ways to serve and work and have to gather money. We didn't feel to do that in this lifetime. We felt that Yogananda explained that if we live our lives for God truly, and we try to live in remembrance of that in everything that we do, even though we may fall short at times, just like in meditation, we fall short and get thoughts going through our brain, but we keep bringing it back. And the same in service and selfless service. And as long as we try, God watches the heart, and that somehow the right thing would happen also by our children. And as it happened, by the grace of God, our children both went to top universities. They lacked nothing, really, materially, financially. They got all the things that some of these other families were concerned that they might not get unless we socked it away in the bank. And so it proved to us, in our lives anyway, that living for tomorrow is, well, it simply doesn't work. As the quatrain explains today, that if we live our lives for God, if we allow our spiritual lives to lead, as Swami Kriyananda once advised our daughter, Hoist your spiritual sail, and everything else will follow. Everything else will fall into place just as it should if we live our lives directed for spirit, for as guided by our inner life, our inner intuition, you might say. And so that is how I at least understand this quatrain as it is explained by Paramahansa Yogananda in the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Joy to you, and we will